Welcome to today's Explainer. We're skipping right past all those flashy, loud myths about success. Instead, we're going to uncover the hidden, scientifically backed engine that actually powers extraordinary lives.
So let me ask you this to kick things off. Picture two people starting out with the exact same opportunities, right? Same education, same resources, yet 10 years down the line, one is just absolutely crushing it, while the other is kind of stuck, wondering where the time went. So what actually happened?
Well, the answer usually falls into one of two buckets. First, you've got the visible lie. That's the whole societal belief that success just comes from massive talent, pure luck, or some giant dramatic action. But then, you have the truth, the invisible engine. It's actually thousands of small, daily, seemingly insignificant moments that compound over time.
Which brings us to our first concept, the marshmallow choice, sacrificing today. You've probably heard of the famous marshmallow experiment, but let's put yourself in the shoes of the kid. The setup is super simple. A researcher puts one marshmallow right in front of you. You can eat it right now, or if you can just hold off for 15 minutes, you get two. Now, to an adult, that sounds like a no-brainer, but to a 5-year-old, waiting 15 minutes is like watching a filler arc in an anime. It feels like an absolute lifetime. But the long-term data here is just staggering. Researchers tracked these kids for years and found out that the ones who waited didn't just get an extra piece of candy. They actually secured significantly better life outcomes. We're talking SAT scores that were hundreds of points higher, way better health metrics, and much stronger career trajectories. Basically, they won at life because they mastered the art of the small sacrifice early on.
So I've got to ask, how often are you choosing that one marshmallow today? Seriously, take a second to actively reflect on your own daily habits. Are you choosing to scroll instead of learn, spending instead of investing, quitting instead of pushing through?
And that brings us to the next big hurdle, the plateau of potential.
We really need to slow down here for a second because we have to talk about why consistency feels so incredibly useless when you first start. Picture an ice cube sitting on a table in a super cold room. The temperature slowly starts to rise. It hits 29 degrees Celsius, and absolutely nothing visibly changes.
The temperature creeps up to 30, then 31 degrees. Still nothing. The tension is building, but there is zero visible payoff. And listen to me, this invisible gap, this is exactly where most people quit. They put in the hard work, they don't see an immediate result, and they just walk away. But then it hits 32 degrees. Boom! The ice suddenly melts. It feels like this instant dramatic transformation. Honestly, it's just like one of those sudden anime power-ups where the hero is getting beaten down for 5 episodes and then bursts with ultimate energy out of nowhere. But the reality? That massive, unstoppable change was building invisibly the entire time.
So let's look at the hard neuroscience of why this actually happens in our next section, rewiring your brain.
How does this invisible engine become a self-sustaining powerhouse? Well, the famous neuroscientist Donald Hebb coined this incredibly catchy phrase: neurons that fire together, wire together. This is absolutely crucial to understand. Every single time you repeat a behavior, you are physically altering the structure of your brain. You're literally carving deep neural pathways that make that exact action easier the next time around. Charles Duhigg's behavioral research breaks this down perfectly into the habit loop: cue, routine, reward. Through consistent repetition, your brain starts requiring less and less willpower to get the job done. The internal resistance just kind of fades away, and eventually the action becomes fully automatic. And this leads us to a pretty profound realization. Consistency changes who you are, not just your results. You eventually stop forcing yourself to do the difficult thing because you literally transform into the type of person who naturally just does it. It's the ultimate character arc.
Now, let's tie it all together in our final section, compounding your success.
I really want to show you the staggering payoff when you let this invisible engine run for years. Have you ever heard of the Matthew effect? It's a sociological theory that basically states the successful become more successful. Small advantages, like say reading just 10 pages a day, create this massive snowball effect. Over time, it builds exponential gaps between people.
History shows this exact same pattern everywhere. Take Kaizen, for example. It's a philosophy of continuous improvement through tiny 1% daily changes. This exact strategy is what helped companies like Toyota achieve absolute global dominance. How? Simply by asking their factory workers to find just 1% improvements on the assembly line every single day. Small wins, compounding forever. And remember that neuroplasticity we talked about earlier? Over the years, that means you aren't just building good habits. You are literally, biologically upgrading your own baseline operating system.
Which brings us right back to compounding. Whether you ask an economist, a neuroscientist, or a psychologist, they are all pointing to this exact same invisible engine. Small actions don't just add up linearly, they multiply exponentially.
So we're left with one stark final question. Will you stay consistent long enough to see it work? Because while the rest of the world only praises the visible, flashy success, the invisible engine powering the whole shebang will always be consistency. The only question left is, will you start your engine today? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.